The film begins by showing a girl named Nancy who is in a car with a bearded man. From their conversation, it is revealed that Nancy, who is from America, is heading to a nameless beach in Mexico to surf. The bearded man next to her is a local resident of a town not far from this beach. He mentions that not many foreigners know about this beach because of its very hidden location. They eventually arrive at the nameless beach. Nancy is immediately amazed by the scenery there. Indeed, the view is stunning, but we don't know what lies beneath. Feeling awestruck, Nancy can't wait to start surfing at this beach. She also thanks the bearded man for giving her a ride. The bearded man then asks, "How will you get back from here?" Nancy replies that she will use a motorbike taxi. Hearing her answer, the bearded man bids farewell. Before surfing, Nancy thoroughly prepares herself to face the big waves at the nameless beach. Once everything is ready, she takes a test drive on her surfboard. On the same beach, there are also two men surfing. It turns out they are tourists from Spain. The three of them chat casually, shouting to be heard. Nancy also asks what she should be aware of at this beach. The two tourists mention that there is a pair of rocky outcrops at this beach, which, when the tide goes out, become a small island. Near these rocks, there is also a type of sea coral known as fire coral, which can sting like jellyfish.
There's some nasty fire coral.
Still have no idea what you're saying.
In short, the three of them surf together until evening. Nancy then takes a break on the beach before surfing again. After her rest, she heads back out to surf. The two tourists urge Nancy to return to shore as it is getting dark, but Nancy refuses, saying she wants to try the waves one more time. Reluctantly, they let her be. This is when big trouble starts for Nancy. While test driving her surfboard out at sea, she spots something floating. It turns out to be the carcass of a severely injured whale. Suddenly, seabirds start flying away, signaling imminent danger. The wave Nancy was waiting for finally arrives. As she rides it, she is struck by something large, getting thrown off and hitting the coral reef below, separating her from her surfboard. She tries to swim back to her board, but suddenly her leg is pulled down. A large, ferocious shark bites her. The sea immediately turns red with blood. Nancy struggles to swim to the surface, the shark's strength overwhelming her. She manages to climb onto the whale carcass for safety. Fortunately, she survives. From a distance, Nancy sees the tourist's car driving away. She screams for help, but the two men don't notice her distress. The shark continues to harass her. Nancy realizes the shark will attack her soon. Indeed, the shark tries to topple the massive whale carcass. Nancy immediately jumps into the water and swims to the rocks. There is also a seabird that gets hit by the whale carcass. Fortunately, Nancy manages to swim to the rocks, accompanied only by the seabird that somehow stays with her. My guess is that the bird is injured and can't fly because of the impact from the whale carcass. Nancy's leg wound is severe, and without medical treatment, she is forced to sew the torn wound using her earring and necklace. Imagine how painful that must be. She then wraps the wound with her swimsuit. Night falls, and Nancy, who hasn't eaten or drunk anything since the evening, starts to feel cold. Her leg swells more due to the infected wound. She takes off her swimsuit from her leg, tears a part of it to use as a bandage for her leg, and uses the rest as a makeshift jacket. She and the seabirds stay on the rocks, fortunately above water as the tide is low. A while later, Nancy wakes up surrounded by small crabs. She kills one crab, and instead of giving it to the bird, she eats it, but ends up vomiting. From a distance, Nancy sees a man lying on the beach, unclear where he came from. She screams for help as loudly as she can. The man slowly wakes up, clearly drunk from heavy drinking. Nancy asks him to get her phone from her backpack. Instead of helping, the man steals her phone and the money from her wallet.
Please. Oh! There's a shark!
The two tourists return to the beach. Nancy shouts at them not to enter the water because of the shark. They ignore her, insisting there's no shark since they swam safely the day before. Unfortunately, one of the tourists is immediately attacked by the shark. His friend tries to swim to Nancy, but disappears, leaving behind a broken surfboard. Shortly after, the remaining tourist appears beside the rocks, and Nancy tries to pull him up, but it's too late. The shark gets him too. As evening approaches, the tide is coming in. Nancy hasn't eaten or drunk anything for a day, and the sun is making her even thirstier. She uses a piece of the broken surfboard to shield her face from the sun. Bored and desperate, she tries to help the injured seabird. Nancy knows a bit about animal orthopedics and notices the bird's shoulder bone is dislocated. She carefully adjusts it back into place, but the bird still can't fly. Nancy then spots a helmet with a GoPro from one of the tourists floating nearby. She formulates a plan to retrieve it. Timing the shark's movements from the whale carcass to the rocks, she calculates that she has only 32 seconds for each opportunity.
2 seconds from the whale to the rock.
Without wasting much time, Nancy swims to the other set of rocks. She initially fails to grab the helmet and falls into the water, but manages to climb back up in time. On her next attempt, she successfully retrieves the helmet. Suddenly, a seal appears behind her, startling her, and she falls back into the water. Underwater, she sees the large shark stuck between rocks and fire coral. Nancy quickly climbs back onto the rocks to save herself. On top of the rocks, she examines the helmet and finds a broken shark tooth, which she keeps. She then watches the GoPro footage, which shows the moments before the tourist was eaten by the shark. Nancy's attention then shifts to a beacon about 27 meters away. She calculates she has 1 minute to swim that distance. Before making the swim, she records a video on the GoPro, explaining her situation and asking for help. She details how she ended up there, mentioning the initial encounter with the whale carcass that attracted the shark. Nancy states that the rocks she's on will soon be submerged due to the rising tide, and that she is about 183 meters from the nameless beach. She also records the seabird that has been her companion. After finishing her message, she throws the helmet into the water, hoping someone will find the video. Nancy then helps the seabird onto a piece of the broken surfboard, sending it towards the shore. Nancy remembers that sharks dislike electrical currents, so she decides to swim among the jellyfish. Without hesitation, she dives in and swims into a group of jellyfish. Unfortunately, she gets stung, causing her hand to swell instantly. The shark avoids attacking her because of the jellyfish. Nancy swims as fast as she can toward the beacon. As she climbs up, the shark attacks the ladder, causing it to break. Nancy stabs the shark with a piece of broken metal and manages to climb up to the beacon. Soon after, Nancy sees a ship sailing not far from the beach. She climbs to the top of the beacon and prees open a metal box with the shark tooth she kept. Inside, she finds a flare gun. She quickly picks up the fallen flares and tries to fire a distress signal, but the flare gun malfunctions. The ship sails away, leaving Nancy feeling desperate and hopeless. Exhausted and weak, she struggles to maintain her will to survive. Meanwhile, a young boy playing on the beach finds Nancy's helmet and GoPro floating in the water. He watches her recorded message and runs to get help. Back at the beacon, Nancy fights to stay alive. She shoots a flare at the shark, provoking it into attacking the beacon. The enraged shark rams the beacon, causing it to collapse, and Nancy falls into the water. With no other options, Nancy takes refuge among the metal framework of the collapsed beacon. Suddenly, the shark attacks from below, breaking part of the metal structure. In a panic, Nancy notices a large anchor holding the beacon in place. The shark continues its relentless attacks. Nancy dives into the water and sees the shark's mouth caught in the metal framework. With the time she has, she uses a wire from her knee guard to cut the anchor chain. Once the chain is severed, Nancy grabs onto it and is dragged towards the anchor. The shark chases her, but Nancy swiftly evades. As a result, the ferocious shark is instantly killed when it gets impaled by the anchor. The scene then shifts to the young boy from earlier, who turns out to be the son of the bearded man who gave Nancy a ride. The boy spots Nancy floating in the water, and his father quickly rushes to rescue her. Miraculously, Nancy is still conscious despite her exhaustion. In the final moments of the film, we see the seabird Nancy saved earlier, standing on the shore and looking in her direction.